Okay, hello and welcome to another video on my channel. I'm joined by the one and only Quinny3001.
Cheers, mate. Long time no see over here in your place, in Harry's place, drinking all the beers out your fridge for a change.
Yeah, we're on my channel today, kind of talking my bread and butter in under 21 or under 23s is obviously, the competition that, that's popular on Sorare, but the under 21 European Championship is a thing this summer, Quinny. And Sorare announced yesterday, I believe, that they are going to be covering the tournament, which for us, or for me, as an under 23 gallery, it's jackpot, obviously. I don't have a ton of players. We'll get into all that. Same for you. It's just extra utility. Who doesn't want extra utility, Quinny? Especially over the summer, right?
Exactly. That's what we all want. We all want more games, more utility. And yeah, man, it's going to be Wonderkids City. And just listening to you talk there as well, Harry, like it is the Euro under 21s, right? But we were chatting about this before hitting record. There's so many players in this tournament that are 23. There's a few of them that are 24, because of the tournament rules and such. So it kind of actually is the Euro under 23s, isn't it? We're just kidding ourselves on. It's under 21s, aren't we?
Yeah, so I think the rule is you have to be born 2000 or later, effectively. So that's how your players like Tonali, who's like 23 right now, is eligible to play in the competition. It's going to be amazing, and we're going to be able to play these cards wherever in that sense. Obviously, the majority of them are going to be in the under 23 tournament or division, I guess, on Sorare. But, you're able to play them in All-Star. You can play them in kind of wherever they see fit. But there is other fixtures going on at this time. I think that's a good thing to mention. So, for me, I don't have a full under 21 Euro team as we speak. I think I'm missing a midfielder. But that midfielder doesn't have to come from the Euro under 21s. It can come from the MLS. It could come from the Argentinian League. It could come from the first teams of these nations that are playing, because there is Euro qualifiers going on right now. Nations League games, or not right now, but whilst this tournament is happening, I think they start on the 21st of June. I'm going to tell the guys at home what we're going to be getting into first, and then we're going to obviously get into things. Running order is we're going to look at the groups, the four groups, A, B, C, and D on Twitter. Have a look at the matchups, who we think the better teams are and are more capable of getting out of their groups. The best players from those teams. Then the bargain players, because everyone loves the bargain. And then we're going to be looking at the teams that we could potentially build. I've seen a couple of yours on Twitter, and a load of guys have been sharing theirs as well, which is it's great to see. But we are going to be using Sorare data, SofaScore, all the data providers in the world to sort of help us with this. Jonathan, a good friend of ours, has made a watch list on Sorare data, which we will be using as well. So just big shout out to him before we get into things. I think there's over like 200 players on this Euro under 21 watch list. Anyone can go use it. We're just going to be utilizing it for the video. But I guess without further ado, Quinny, we're just getting to the groups, is it? Okay, so I made a tweet yesterday collating all the sort of squads of these under 21 teams. On screen now, you should be able to see the four groups. Group A, Georgia, Portugal, Belgium, Netherlands. Group B, Romania, Spain, Croatia, Ukraine. Group C, Czech Republic, England, Germany, and Israel. Group D, Norway, Switzerland, France, Italy. Obviously, we'll go through Group A first. Quinny, is this the group of death?
I believe it is. Georgia are the home nation, FYI, or for what it's worth, depending on your take on the Georgian national team. We'll get into the squad and who might make it, and all the rest of it. But they, regardless of who might make it and all that, are the potential whipping boys of the group, because Netherlands and Belgium and Portugal, let's just say Portugal as well, these are three power nations on Sorare, particularly at under 23 level, so these three teams, we know, we're anyone listening to this, we don't need to tell you the script. That these teams are covered in legit talent. So it's hard to see Georgia getting any points with or without some of the key players that we maybe see in their 20s.
Yeah, it could be tough for the host nation there. Group B, I mean, it's hard to not look at, your Spain and then your Croatia and go, okay, they probably qualify there. But at under 21 level, it's not as apparent as sort of first team international football, where if this was the main sort of, if this was a first teams of those nations, i.e. Romania, Spain, Croatia, and Ukraine, you'd probably say Spain and Croatia walk it. But at under 21 level, I think the gap is smaller, if that makes sense, or less impactful.
Ooh.
And
Really?
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into Spain's sort of squad in a minute, but I see more upsets at this level than I do at sort of first team level, in that sense, in terms of at international level. I've probably said level a million times there. But for you, is this a Spain-Croatia sort of romping, or is it Or are you sort of siding with me and might think it might be a little bit closer for maybe your Ukraines and your
Now,
Romanians?
Romania also are kind of semi-host nation of this as well.
Yeah.
And Ukraine, as we know at the moment, are like, going through stuff that we don't need to talk about, of course, and it's not our place to. But the word on the street is with Ukraine, they're doing a Georgia a little bit as well. Romania, again, being the host nation, maybe add a little bit of something into the context of it all. But the Spain team is head and shoulders above everyone in that group for me. Like, I don't think there's any two ways about their squad romping Romania. Because Romania, like, even if you think about, Romania's not actually that bad in like the context of football or whatever. But sincerely, when does anyone come out of the Romanian league anymore? And like even end up, think of all the leagues that we pay attention to. It never happens, or this good player's been brought out of Romania. So like, I've not got much faith that they've got a youth team that will cause any upsets in this. In Ukraine, like, who knows really, if they do call upon some senior players, maybe they could do better than Croatia. But for me, Spain clearly like run this group.
If we kind of dive into Group C straight away with Czech Republic, England, Germany, and Israel, and I just want to add, under-20 World Cup, Israel beat Brazil, which is not something that anyone's ever said probably in the history of football at any level. So, going back to the whole Romania thing, and you just never know, Quinny, is what I'm getting at. Obviously, no one knows in football. Everything's, rather tough to predict. But ultimately, I do think we see these sort of lesser nations by, sort of worldly talent. They do sometimes come together as an 11 and go out and beat these sort of powerhouses. I'm not saying that's going to happen in this England and Germany group per se with this Israel under-21 team, but you just never know, is what I'm getting at. But again, England and Germany kind of do stand out here for me in terms of, if you look at that, which we will get into their squads in a minute, but yeah, those two squads look frightening to me.
Yeah, and I think, clearly England and Germany will reign right over Israel and Czech Republic in this. Israel obviously doing really good in that World Cup, like you say. It's hard to know really where their players will be at, the quality of player available at that age pool. I know Abada's not going to be there. I think Gluck will be there, and I think somebody else that's quite prominent will be there, but I don't think Abada will be. But again, unless like the England team is a Premier League team, basically, if you look at it, and the Germany team is a Bundesliga team. So like, I don't see that caliber of team dropping points against Czech Republic and Israel. So it feels like Germany and England have got 6 points each.
And then Group D, Norway, Switzerland, France, Italy. Again, we'll get into it in a minute, but France squad's looking incredible. Italy have been able to call upon, like I mentioned earlier, Tonali. But Switzerland and Norway, I've looked at their squads as well, and they're no mug. So
I think this is a group where we get an upset. I think Italy don't really do that well at youth tournament football generally. And there's definitely been an attempt. It's just stuff I've picked up from listening to other stuff, of course, because I'm not Italian, but they've definitely they're making more of an effort to compete at this level, which is why they do have some of those enforcements in the team, like Tonali and Ravella and whatever, whereas normally they don't do that. But for me, Norway and Switzerland, like you say, they're no mugs. And, those, like, we were talking about upsets earlier with some of the other teams, right? But for me, Israel at the moment beating somebody doesn't overly surprise me because they've got 3 or 4 wee Wonderkids dotted around Europe. Equally, with Norway at the moment, I wouldn't be surprised if they were to cause an upset in this group. So I don't think Italy are all that. I don't think Switzerland and Norway should be really frightened of them, but I think France are, if you look at the previous winners of this tournament, it's Spain, Germany and France predominantly, when you've got one wee win in there for Sweden a few years ago. So I think France clearly will, similar to Spain, I think they'll just run the group. But I think the upset will happen in D. Italy won't get out.
Okay, that's the groups out of the way. Let's get into some fixtures over on SofaScore. A quick scroll down here allows us to see that the competition starts with the host nation, of course, Georgia, playing Portugal on the 21st of June. There is another 4 games on that day. Belgium play Netherlands, Ukraine play Croatia, and Romania play Spain. I think that coincides, Quinny, with game week 382, I believe, on Sorare, which is a midweek. Of course, there is, first team Nations League games going on, if that makes sense. So there is, going to be other players involved. Don't just think if you're buying this under 21 contingency of players that they're just, there's just 4 fixtures in this sort of game week. There's not. I can sort of show you that right now if we need to. There's other
MLS
fixtures.
has a full slate, I think.
Yeah, so there's Argentinian league on that midweek. As we're scrolling here, actual first team football of nations, and then you've got the under-21s then starting on the Wednesday. As you can see here, like Quinny just mentioned, there is MLS as well. So, you're not alone, if that makes sense, if you are just playing with under-21 players. Does any of these sort of fixtures stand out to you? Is it the Portugal-Georgia one that's kind of the anomaly here?
Well, yeah, I think in that first game week there's a lot of the prime fixtures quite early out, isn't there? I think Belgium-Netherlands, that's like, what I said to you before we came on, the Sorare Derby fixture, because, well, I think the full teams, both those full teams will be carded. You said it earlier in the watch list. There's over 200 cards. Like last time we had this, there was hardly any people that had cards in it, and you were trying to follow the teams and get to know the players. And the real value of this really isn't in having a full, maybe a full stack team if you win some stuff and whatever is great. But the real value of this tournament, Harry, is scouting, is knowing the next guy's coming through. This is like a huge tournament that we'll have good access to. And, like, even if you've got one card that's supplementing like your America team or your Japanese team or whatever it is that might be going on in Argentina.
Yeah.
It's also about looking at, I caught we're looking at match day one, the Belgium-Netherlands game, and maybe there's a guy in your gallery, maybe that's a guy you're going to be looking at, and you're just convinced now you've seen him, or a guy you maybe never knew about that you get discovered. And like some of the guys, like the last Euros tournament that we watched on this, Harry, was the one that Germany won, and that squad was like Musiala, Wirtz, Schlotterbeck, Adeyemi, apex players that like the football world knew nothing about. Yeah. Playing Sorare, you knew a bit about. They go and do that tournament, and then, as you say, the rest is history to this point. I think Belgium-Netherlands, that opening day, maybe one of those games where one of those teams emerge, whoever maybe goes furthest in the tournament, because that is the group of death. That's a 6-pointer on match day one that we'll all be plugged in for. So I think that'll be a good one.
I mean, the Romania sort of Spain fixture probably equally sort of stands out, as well as the Georgia-Portugal, in terms of like there's a one-sided, game to be had potentially. In that same sort of game week, I'm guessing the teams playing on the 22nd or be involved. So you've got Czech Republic versus England. That's probably, again, a decent fixture for those English boys. Germany, Israel, if we're thinking that Israel aren't as sort of quote-unquote strong as they could be because of the under-20 World Cup situation, then again, great fixture maybe for the Germans. Norway, Switzerland seems probably a 50-50 game. And then France, Italy, again, I don't really know how to call that one. Obviously, you probably think France, just in terms of who they've sort of called up, but again, tough to call, right?
Big time. Yeah, I think, but really good opening set of matches, and there's a few good fixtures there. But the thing with this tournament, I say, like I've got a full Spain team, right? So I don't know if I'll play it all, because I don't know if all my guys will play. Yeah, I'm more kind of hoping that by having that, like if they do start to play, maybe I've got a run to the final on the go, and I've only put that together because I had 3 of the cards anyway. Probably the 3 most expensive options. I get 2 wee cheap cards in to facilitate. I didn't do anything extravagant, I think it doesn't really matter for some of these teams. Like if you've got a Norway card, if you've got a Czech Republic card or whatever, I don't think the result really needs to go your way if you've got the right player. Maybe the goalkeeper that makes all the saves, or the defender that gets the goal line clearance or something. So I think so many cap competitions and all sorts, man, like there's going to be surprises. We're not going to predict everything correctly,
No.
I think the first match day, it just really has the potential to get you bitten by the bug. And the thing as well, Harry, that I suppose we'll come on to now is like, it's a really quick turnaround. So as much as people are worried about, who's the starting striker and whatever, when you've got game weeks like this, man, this squad gets used, so it's 2 days, isn't it? 3-day turnaround.
Yeah, 24th is the next sort of fixtures. Portugal play Netherlands, Georgia, Belgium, as well as another host of fixtures on the 25th as well. England, Israel could be a standout there potentially. France, Norway, another big one, and then again another 2-day turnaround on the 27th and 28th. So that sort of concludes the group stages. But one thing to keep in mind, like if England per se have got 6 out of 6 points in the first 2 games, they're going to rotate that third game. It's just a fact, like any other nation will. So your starting striker for the first 2 games, he might not be starting the third game, and that's just how you've just got to take it, because he might then go and start in the quarters and the semis and however far they go. Do you get what I'm saying? So that's something I think people need to be wary of, because there is going to be rotations even in the second games, depending on how fixtures go. It's so hard to predict, and all these players probably will be involved. And yeah, a lot of the squads that I did sort of collate on Twitter, a lot of them were preliminary squads, so we don't know exactly who will be involved exactly, but just going to have a quick scan through some of the names that we sort of know because of Sorare, I guess, and should have a big impact in these tournaments. Group A here, Georgia haven't announced their squad like I've mentioned here, but Mamardashvili and Kvashvela are set to play, which is obviously a huge boost, to their chances. Georgia aside, this Portugal squad, Quinny, I mean, just some names to roll off: Fabio Silva, Cohen Chao, Henrique Araujo, Pedro Neto, João Neres, who's become an absolute revelation at Benfica over the last couple of months, Fabio Vieira, I mean, Nuno Tavares. Like, it doesn't look as good as the 99 squad for me in terms of how well they've progressed, but there is still some like incredible names here to be playing under 21 football. Like Fabio Vieira playing under 21 football still is just crazy to me.
And it's a lot of trust as well in that nation's youth system, but you know how they'll play. You know that everyone in that team, even if you've never heard of them, you know they'll be tidy. And that's who we're going to discover maybe is who will be these guys in Portugal that, you know, how are they in the team? How do I not know them?
Moving on to the Belgium squad, which for Sorare sort of enthusiasts, especially under 23 wise, the whole squad basically is on Sorare. Like, genuinely, I don't recognise the first goalkeeper's name, Maxime Delang, to be fair, but Sam Lammers and obviously Van der Voort, Sorare OG. Defence, Akdeel at Burnley, De Bass, De Cypher, Patrice. There's some big names here in the sort of Sorare sphere, which is good because people own them already. You know, there's just more utility to be had from these cards, right?
Yeah, big time. And I think Arthur Vermeeren, the way they've been going on about him in Belgium, just won the title with Antwerp in his rookie season. You know, like he
18.
could be like, he could be like the worst of this tournament or something like that. He could be one of the guys that, you know, because that's a team that's there, and he seems to be a talent. You know, and this is the sort of tournament that kind of thing normally works out pretty well for people.
100%. Romeo Lavia's in there, £60 million player that's just taken the sort of Premier League by storm in arguably the worst team in the league. You know, Raskin, less said the better, I guess, for you, Quinny, there. Bakayoko at PSV, Balikwisha, CDK's in there, who's been obviously non-existent at Milan, but it'd be great to maybe get him some playing time and kind of maybe kick on his new season in this 23-24 season upcoming.
It feels pretty wrong that there's no Doku here, eh?
It does, yeah. He's probably a bit too big time, isn't he, Doku? I can't imagine he agreed to, like, you know, he's obviously been in that sort of Belgium first team now since he was probably 16. He's like 20 now. There's no way you're dropping down. I know CDK's been in and around the first team as well for a while, but I think someone like Doku, I think his head would just be flying off if he had to go and play for the 21s. As much as they probably, you know, I don't know, that's just me sort of stereotyping in there, I guess. But a great sort of contingency of players in that Belgium 21s. And we could probably equally say the same for this Netherlands squad. I know there's some absentees that have gone with the first team. I think somebody told me, I think it was Frimpong that refused to play for the 21s. Yeah. And there was another Gertruda who would normally be in this squad, but he's, I'm guessing, with the first team. But some big names here, Quinny. I mean, like, you know, Verbruggen in goals, Van der Berg, Brobby's in there, Elkinkamp, Van Heck, Ian Matson has just got promoted, Hartman has won the league with Feyenoord, Gravenberch is in there, Quinny. How must he be feeling? I know it's an honour to be representing your country and stuff, but for a player like him, just move to Bayern. Obviously, he hasn't had the sort of game time that he's probably wanted or maybe expected or whatever after being probably first name on the team sheet realistically in that Ajax team for a couple of years as that sort of emerging talent, and now he's playing with the 21s. I'm sorry, but that doesn't, like, if I'm Gravenberch, my head's going a little bit. I can't lie. But, he's there.
Shop window material, but isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is. But then, it's not... Basically, for players like him, you have to perform if you're playing, if that makes sense. Because if you can't do it under 21 level, then you can't warrant these moves to Bayern and want to be playing 90 minutes every game over a Goretzka or whatever. Because, do you get what I'm saying? That's just kind of the brutality of it. That's football. You have to perform week in, week out. Otherwise, teams, agents, people just don't want you. You have to be good at what you do, at your job. It's as simple as that. And for someone like him, I think there's big pressure on him because he'll be one of the more senior players in this sort of Netherlands squad, and they'll want to go out and win it. Kenny Taylor, Quinton Timber, Van der Veen, Xerxes. There's a Matt Somerville at Leeds. Wrench is in there. I mean, this squad looks like primed to potentially win the thing. Van Uwijk, who's sort of primed to get a move from Heerenveen. A million man hooves in there. Mynans for AZ it's an incredible squad, Quinny. I wouldn't like to pick the starting 11 here, if I'm being honest.
No.
I really
Yeah.
wouldn't.
That's
But
a huge group of death, eh? Like,
it really
picking
is,
two out of
yeah.
those three.
Group B, your boy Spain, Quinny, if you want to touch upon these.
Well, I've had a few fights, or not fights, a few discussions on Twitter around the goalkeeper situation. A lot of people seem to think that little Arifa Balaga is going to get in. I'm just kind of going on my hunch and my nous and saying it's going to be Tenas. If you look into the playing history of them both at this level, there's an argument for both. But I've got a Tenas, and I'm blindly going into the Tenas camp. Leo Roman, don't really know much about. I've seen his name around on Sorare and his cards and stuff, but beyond that, nothing. For me, the defence is pretty stacked. Now, this defence highlights a really big problem with La Liga this season on Sorare, and we did not get a Pacheco card. Now, most people out there are probably thinking, who? Pacheco's been playing centre-back all season for Sociedad. He's got no cards. He's the nailed-on centre-back in this defence, and he's got no cards. But the rest of the defence are all pretty strong and good as well. I like a lot of the cards, particularly the fullbacks. Arnaud Martinez, Manu Sanchez, Miguel Gutierrez, Hugo Guillamon is like 25 or something, but still gets in the team. And the midfield is covered in star quality. Sanchez a bit older and had a really good season for Bilbao. He's one of those kind of older heads that's in the squad, even though he's maybe not really on the Spain radar as such, you know. He's getting his chance here. Nico Gonzalez from La Masia, Gabri Vega, we all know about now. Antonio Blanco, chatting about him somewhere else with somebody else, I can't remember. Oh, it was with Stish about Real Madrid and stuff. Alex Baena, who's playing with Dani Parejo in Villarreal. Really good. And then up front, guys like Camelo, Riquelme, Abel Ruiz, who is ripping it up in Portugal for Braga, unfortunately never got a card. Barenchia, Latasa, quite good as well. Rodri, Sergio Gomez, I've not seen much. Oh, Sergio Gomez is the Man City Anderlecht, Sergio Gomez, Dortmund guy. So he's in the team as a forward. He's listed as. So,
and he only has midfielder and defender cards on Sorare, which is quite ironic.
Yeah, so I think it's a really good Spain team. And again, like if you look through the previous history of the tournament, since 2004, Italy won it, Netherlands back-to-back, Germany, Spain back-to-back, Sweden, Germany, Spain, Germany. Spain, Germany, Holland are always in amongst running this show, you know. In Spain, again, they've just got the nous of winning these tournaments. They bring in guys like Sanche and whatever, the guys, Guillamon, the guys that are a wee bit older in the defensive midfield and defence. And then, you know, let all the flair players run around and be their guys.
We can look at the sort of Croatia graphic. I mean, there's some big players in here that have had really good seasons for their sort of respective clubs. Baturina being one of them. Yeah, I'd probably argue their goalkeepers are probably their best sort of the quality in terms of like when it's spread out in that sense. 3 really good sort of goalkeepers that have all played first team football for a while. I know up front, Rocco Simic, who's on loan from Salzburg, is supposed to be an absolute player. He's like the Sesko sort of replacement for Salzburg. But the England under-21 squad, Quinny. I mean, some of the talent here, name-wise, they're not even just talent. They're players who play in the Premier League, like, and score goals and get assists. Like, these are like legit players. You know, in goals, you know, no one sort of stands out in terms of like they're playing at like a crazy level. I know James Trafford's done really well for Bolton this year. I can't tell you where the other 3 are playing right now, so that's just my ignorance. But at the back, Max Aarons, Branthwaite, Levi Colwill, who you've just recently won, Charlie Cresswell, Lewis Hall, Taylor Harwood-Bellis, Spence, and Luke Thomas. I mean, Jesus Christ.
I think what Trafford's been on is probably being the number one keeper. Like I say, I'm a huge fan of the midfield, but the defence is probably, you know, the defence is what gets you quite far in tournaments in England. Like, and again, I know he's listed in this as a forward, but Morgan Gibbs-White and a few of these guys have played in generations where they've won other youth tournaments before coming into this, because I know this because, you know, my previous job, I was in the car all the time listening to bloody radios and everything all the time, and they went a summer where they won like everything, you know, 17s, 20s or whatever. That's part of their strategy for their youth teams, is to be competitive at this level to help their first team. So when you look at the quality that they've got, particularly with how strong they are in defence, it's hard to imagine them losing many games. It feels like what will be the undoing of the team will probably be extra time penalties or, you know, dubious decisions that may arise.
100%. I was just thinking, though, the only sort of negative to having England players, I guess, in this competition is they don't, you know, the goalkeeper isn't on Sorare, if that makes sense. So that's the only sort of, not caution I would have, but, you know, they might be incredible in terms of their defensive scores. And yeah, you could play 2 defenders. You could play a Levi Cole with a Taylor Harwood-Bellis if you have both of those rare cards or super rare, whatever it is, limiteds. but you don't have the goalie, which is a big miss, because if you do think they're going to get these sort of, incredible sort of defensive games and clean sheets and stuff, it is a bit of an interesting one where like you might not be able to, fully take advantage of those, massive scores that maybe the defense and goalkeeper get. But don't get me wrong, it's still not a bad thing to have a lot of these defenders. Don't get me wrong. But some of the midfielders as well, like Elliott, James Garner, Curtis Jones has been pretty good for Liverpool over the last couple of months. Skips in there, Jacob Ramsey, Tommy Doyle. There's some big names in here.
Well, Harry, on that note, I was going for it a few weeks ago. I was almost convincing myself to go and buy the 1 of 10 Tommy Doyle. It was on auction, and it went a wee bit beyond my appetite, let's say. But this could be a big tournament for him. I know there's huge experience in this midfield already with guys like Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott, Garner, Skip. But when I was at Villa Park this year, Jacob Ramsey was the most exciting player on the pitch. He was such a surprise. I didn't expect anything from him in the game, and he really did grab my attention.
Moving over to Germany, Quinny, the names here again are just mind-boggling, right?
Yeah, I think it's a really good team, and everyone I talk to tells me how good the team it is, right? But I don't know if I'm spoiled with the last Germany team, but I don't think it's quite there.
Yeah, fair enough.
The last Germany team was like star-studded, particularly Sorare-wise.
Yeah,
there's a few guys in midfield I'll be interested to see. Moukoko, of course, is a huge name at this level, and who else really stands out? Ansgar Knauf stands out on like the European stage. Has done well for Frankfurt, obviously, and played for Dortmund. Whereas the rest of these guys are like all talents, of course, and they're all great players, and Martels and Nets, and there's lots of guys here that will do really well. But I don't feel that same aura out this Germany team, as when there was like Musiala, Wirtz and Adeyemi and Schlotterbeck. And
Jonathan, the sort of creator of the watch list, which we will be getting into very shortly, he mentioned to me the Gluck should be playing for Israel, as well as Davida and Kazev. I think they do have cards, but like Quinny mentioned, Celtic aren't letting Abada play. And then moving on to the last Group D, we'll have a look at a couple of these graphics before getting into the watch list. But yeah, I mean, we'll have to start with France, Quinny. What have we got to say here? Jesus.
They've got to be getting to the semi-final, eh? I think they've got two absolute weapons in every position from top to bottom.
Yeah.
I think if they don't play Chevalier, they're crazy, to be honest with you. I don't know. So if Chevalier starts, I said this on the podcast, or I said it somewhere, I'll say it again. Sacha Boey is going to get a reputation after this tournament. Like, he is, he is somebody that if you don't know, you'll get to know. Yeah. Loic Bade just picked up the Europa League. Simican, of course, Lukeba. Quentin Merlin, as we know, is he's a good player. Kalulu's been very good when he's played. That. Again, we're talking about defences and goalkeepers. That doesn't get much better in this tournament than what France have got.
No, and the positive to owning or to be playing on Sorare with these cards is they have cards. All three goalkeepers have cards. And literally, I think every one of those defenders have a card. Diakite actually just randomly, I watched him play against PSG, in that Lille where Messi scored the free kick. He actually scored in that game, which was funny. But yeah, just an really athletic right back who probably, I know this Bowie's supposed to be really good as well, so I don't know who's going to get the nod there. But yeah, the strength and depth is ridiculous. Like you said, 2 or 3 sort of exceptional talents at every sort of position. Midfielders, Kakare, Manu Kone, Kevin Thuram, Olise, and Lefebvre. I mean, I don't know too much about the Montpellier guy, Chotard, to be honest. But those 5 names there, Quinny, I mean, Jesus Christ. They're all touted to get 60 million pound moves this window. And I'm not even joking.
They're all going to Liverpool.
They're literally all going to Liverpool. It's crazy. Genuinely, Kone and Thuram are just can do everything on a football field you want a midfielder can do. Elise has had, an unbelievable season in regards to goals and assists. He's touted to go to PSG. Kakare is just sort of single-handedly, revive this sort of Lyon side in terms of their midfield. And then Lefebvre's been exceptional for Lorient for a long time and is touted to go to Rennes, I think. So, I mean, yeah, it's just hard. It's hard to look past France, if I'm being honest.
Very hard, And I think the main thing to say about France, why it's so hard to look past, is it's in the attack line. Guire is, for me, the favourite for the Golden Boot. I think Adley has been fantastic for Leverkusen, and Cherki's Cherki. And none of them, maybe Guiri's nailed to start, but the other 2 are not nailed to start, and that just goes, Callum Muendo, I don't know if that's how you say his name, he will start, I think, by all accounts, centre forward, and it's the wide forwards that are probably going to rotate and interchange on form and whatever else. But that attack, like Guiri, I think is a Golden Boot contender, clearly, from all the squads we've seen so far. Because he is older as well. He's got a bucket of caps. He knows this level of football. Yeah. That team behind him is amazing, you know.
Don't sleep on this Barcola, though. I've watched him play far too many times for Lyon. He's a wide forward like Adley, very quick, very dynamic, quite rangy, quite tall. But has been, I think he's had like 12 starts this year for Lyon and has had like something like 10 goal involvements. Like he's actually like done really, really well once he's sort of come into this Lyon side. But again, like you said, Guri's probably the out-and-out number 9 in this team. And then it's like, okay, who plays out of Elise, Barcola, Adley on the wing? Cherki might play in the 10. You just don't know. I think Cherki will start. But there's been rumours that he might choose Italy's first team. Have you heard about those Mancini trying to tap up Cherki to play for Italy?
No.
Yeah, I promise you. I think it's his old man, maybe, this Italian, or his granddad. And Mancini's been sort of, I swear to God, it's been rumoured for like a couple of months, They haven't actually called him up, obviously. He's been called up to this 21 squad. Let's see if he obviously turns up. But I swear on my life, that is a worry. There's somebody like me that, has a Cherki card. He might not play in this tournament. He might choose Italy. That's something just be wary of for sure.
I don't think we need to go through all the positions, right? But there's a few guys that are really good. Scalvini, Udogi, Zanoli, Ravella, Tonali, of course, Bove.
Yeah,
these guys are all pretty good, right? But I just don't think they've got enough in them, Italy, to get through this group. To be honest with you, like that France team are unstoppable, and we'll obviously sit on Italy for a second. But the Norwegians, I think the Norwegians have got a shot at them, and I don't think Switzerland will be pushed over either.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's some big names in here, like players like Tonali. Like people might not realize the effect that like someone like him dropping down to this level will have on a team like this Italy under 21 side. Do you get what I'm saying? Like having him in that central of the park is going to be like, it's like playing with God in that sense. Like for the rest of the younger boys, in terms of what he can bring in terms of his experience and stuff. So I don't know, things like that might change things. Like we don't really have that in. Look, I'm not saying England's side is not as good as this, but like nobody's like dropping down. Like Phil Foden's not dropping down to this and playing. Do you get what I'm saying? Which is something that we're seeing in the other nations, for example, Italy, like I've just mentioned with Tonali. So I don't know. I think that does play into it a little bit. Norway squad, there's some players in here. I mean, I'm a massive Jorgen Strand Larsen fan who's at Celta Vigo right now. Hasn't really sort of kicked on too much in La Liga, but somebody that was great for Groningen the season before that. Antonio Nusa, that's like touted to be like the sort of next Mbappe of Belgian football, playing for Club Brugge. There's some decent players in here. Hakon Evjen, who was actually really good for AZ last season. Johan Hove, that plays for Groningen. I know they got relegated, but he's been a standout for them this season. Jasper Darland is at Cercle Bruges. There's some sort of, like really decent 21, 22-year-old football players here that should be standing out in these type of tournaments, right? I mean, I've not looked over the Swiss squad too much, but I'm just trying to see if I recognize any names before we get into Sorare data. I mean, honestly, I don't. Do you, Quinny?
No, it's just like a lot of these guys, you look at the squads they're coming from or the academies that they're currently finding themselves in. It's just a pretty well-run team, like none of these guys, like comparison to the other smaller nations in the groups we're talking about, like Romania and co, like their youth players are not in elite academies and in Austrian leagues and German leagues and these types of places, they are all predominantly in the Romanian league, and then it's the outliers that find themselves maybe in Croatia if they're unlucky, or Serbia or something like that. It's not, you just know the whole team is going to be like at it. They're going to be capable international players at right back, left back, centre back, and everything else.
And I guess that kind of segues us on to the watch list that I sort of hyped up at the start of the video that Jonathan Sorare Israel kindly made 9 hours ago. So this is sort of public knowledge. Anyone can sort of use this, and you just have to type in under 21 Euro players in or over on the My Watch List tab on Sorare data. If you have Sorare data, if you don't, obviously, then this is going to be useful for you. But I've filtered from L14 best to worst, Quinny. We're just going to have a scan through of like the better cards that have performed this season and how well they might do at this tournament, and then we're going to have a look at a couple of the bargains. Kicking us off, I mean, it's the Burnley boys that kind of steal the show at the top of the L40 ratings. Jordan Bay and Harwood Bellis, obviously Germany and England respectively. Are we going to see like, do we think we're going to get to see like the 70, the 35 AA type of games from these two?
Easy. Yeah, I think for Germany, I'm less convinced by from all the stuff we went through, but I think like it's Harwood Bellis really should be running the show. No problem at all. I don't think there'll be any danger of him.
I mean, the next three, Lefay, Decipher, and Kvashvili, I mean, have all had exceptional season. Maxime's been on loan from Club Bruges, expected to go back next season. Lefay, like we've mentioned, and Kvashvili. I mean, he could be arguably the best. Well, not even arguably. He's probably the best player at the tournament if he goes for Georgia, right? Has to be.
On paper, he's definitely the biggest superstar at the tournament. And one man doesn't make a team, but one man can definitely help you get to a semi-final of a tournament. Hey, Wales. Sorry, Harry. So it's definitely not unheard of, to say the least. Big De Kuiper, of course, has definitely got fans all over Sorare as well. Great attacking wide option. Don't know where he'll actually play for Belgium, but really capable. And Enzo, it's really hard to see him not AAing his brains out at this game. It's like, does he start 3 games in the groups? Probably not. That's probably the thing I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, another Georgian right next to Kvashvili in the L14 rankings is Emeka Tuwezi, who could
He's been slept on.
Has been slept on, but I'm just thinking now, what a stack that could be. Kvashvili and Emeka Tuwezi, who's been exceptional at the second half of this season for Metz in Ligue 2 in the French league. I mean, that could be an interesting one. Ian Matson, another Burnley boy, L40 of 57. Bart Verbruggen's up here as sort of the best goalkeeper L40 wise in terms of starters. Do we think he's going to get the number one sort of Dutch nod?
It feels like people are wanting it to be Verbruggen, but Sherpin is very much in the frame. I don't think that. And again, over the group stages, especially Holland, because we've seen it at the first team, they do mad stuff with goalkeepers. So, Holland could play 3 goalkeepers in the group like that. Holland are crazy like that. They could do that,
100%. 100%. The next 2 midfielders that come up is Kakare and Baturina. I mean, if you've got these cards at your disposal, I mean, just wow. Like, I wouldn't be going out to buy a Kakare just for this tournament. I wouldn't be doing that for anybody that I don't think that has, like, sustained amount of time in my gallery. Like, if I'm going to go out and buy a card for this tournament, it's going to be because, 1, I rate them anyway, and 2, I think they're going to be good next season, if that makes sense. That's kind of an important point I think I need to say, and I think we need to say, is like, there's only potentially 3 games for a couple of these squads. Even the good teams, like the Dutch, like, they're in a group of death. They could be sort of coming third in that group, unfortunately, right?
But part of this as well, Harry, is who you're going to buy after the tournament. That's really the thing for me, is really, who are you going to buy along the way? Who are you going to find along the way or afterwards,
Agree,
or who do you win in 8 months from now? And you go, oh, that guy, and that tier 3 is all of a sudden actually pretty useful because you know a bit about him or something.
100%.
So.
I think the worry with like buying them after is like their price might be inflated at that point because they've just come off the back of a massive under-21 tournament. And I think everything on Sorare is timing. It's timing of buys and when you buy them. Because, if whoever has an absolute incredible under-21 tournament and his price is five times what it was before the tournament, then is that a good buy? Probably not, in the sense that like you're paying 5 times the amount that you would have before. So I think that's important. I think this is why we're making this video, because we're highlighting players. You got your chance to get in now on some of these before they quote unquote explode, and have sort of these breakout tournaments. Obviously Tonali's in there, Sasha Bowie that we've mentioned, he might be getting a move to the Premier League, I've heard. Arsenal's rumoured there. Mynans is in there. I think that could be an interesting one. I mean, £200 for a rare, 14 quid for a limited. That seems, for a player that I really rate, like that would be the type of buy that I'd be looking into personally for my own gallery, because I might be low on under 23 mids for next season. He's 23, of course, so has another year left, of under 23 eligibility. Like, he's the type of buy I'd be looking at, in a sense, like price wise and future utility.
We've not really touched on this yet, but it's probably a great point to put it into the video, is like playing under 23s in the summer this year looked bleak, looked dead, looked empty. And this has given it a wee ray of sunshine where you can win the best under 23 cards, but it gets better because where is Mbappe and where is Haaland and all of this? They're doing different things, and they're not going to be playing Georgia under 21s. Now, they'll have their own fixtures. Maybe Mbappe does do well in one game or whatever, right? But point stands. It's not Mbappe PSG. It's not Haaland Man City. It's not Timber Ajax. You're up against in these positions these game weeks. So there's a wee opportunity if you've got the bits. It's just really, it is like we said it at the beginning, I think somewhere. But like if you have like a couple of pieces, if you're a couple of pieces away from having a having a shot at it, then I've done it, right? I picked up 2 rares for like, this grand total of like 100 quid or something, because why not? But the main value is under 23 for me, you know what I mean, in these cards. Or maybe you've got a guy anyway and you're going to play them in cap mode. But if you are going to play under 23, the opportunity to win, like the field is very open. Like anybody could really build a winning team in this tournament.
It's wide open, like you said, and it also makes those MLS sort of powerhouse cards, your Thiago Almadas of the world and Ricky Puig or whatever. It makes them less powerful in a weird way, because, like you said, if England under 21s are playing Georgia for whatever reason, and Morgan Gibbs White's playing, he could end up outscoring a 500 to £1,000 Thiago Almada card for that game week, which makes him more which makes him more valuable for that game week, and can obviously help you win prizes that game week, and that's kind of where this is sort of going. Bade for like £10 at limited level. I know the rare seems like people aren't stupid. They are going to be raising floors on these cards. Like the 1 week average of Bade's £88, the floor is 140. So be careful. Don't go spending 140 quid on a Bade now that he's playing for France, or might be playing for France. That's kind of, I want to get that education out there, because it's just not, you can't be going out and sort of paying double the price for a card that might not even start for these 3 games, if that makes sense. So just be very cautious. Again, with Olise here, 2 week average £165, the Premier League's done, floor price now 431. Do not go and spend 400 quid on an Olise rare card. Whatever you do. Do you get what I'm saying? I think that needs to be said.
Some of these guys as well will real life benefit from this tournament. Like we mentioned about Gravenberch, but you could say it about so many of these players, that good tournament, good move, and if you're looking at a guy that is maybe a wee bit overpriced or whatever, or it's the converse. It's the guys where it's like, I picked up a Sergio Camelo, right? Sergio Camelo and Manu Sanchez. Both the guys I picked up, right, are out on loan from Atletico Madrid to other teams in La Liga, and I've got no idea where they'll be playing next year, right? But I've got a high suspicion that they'll be on loan somewhere else again, because that's just the way it goes for them.
Yeah.
But that, so I don't mind spending, I don't mind trading those guys in, because there's a bit of clear upside there. But some of these guys, like Ravella's got a really interesting outlook, because he's part owned or on loan between Juve and Monza. I'm not too sure the whole situation of it all, but if he has a big breakout tournament, we're joking about Liverpool buying all the France guys, but maybe Liverpool see him and go, oh, that wee Ravella actually is quite tidy, and maybe he gets a move seemingly out of nowhere. Mickey van de Ven is another great candidate for something like that to happen. It's all about kind of knowing your gallery, like you say, like, does it fit? Is it going to come in, and what are the potential consequences? Like the Sasha Boy one, for example, like if you're after an under 23 defender, let me just check how long he's got eligibility for, because he's not got many cards, right? He's already punchy in price, but I am quite eager to talk about him because he's finally got cards. He's under 23 until 2025, so I think if France go far, which we expect them to, guys like him, Vermeeren, these guys that go on and like carve a good tournament out for themselves, like even like I'm looking at him now on the secondary market. I think if he was to move to some of the teams he's linked to and keep his form up, like, he's a really big scoring defender, fullback as well, doesn't mess about, high quality, high reputation, out of a really good academy, I think Rennes or something.
I mean, I guess that kind of segues nicely into the sort of, final but one piece of this video, which is, what are the bargains in our sort of opinion and in, I guess, the market on Sorare's opinion. So I've filtered by price, limited, lowest to highest. A lot of these will have no sale, so that's why they'll come up at the top, if that makes sense, but that's not, they either have no cards or there's just no sale for those cards, like, Kotarski and Sherpun. So we'll kind of disregard them, but, we'll just have a little scroll through, and if any names sort of pop out to us, and, and we can have a little chat about them, because there's always, I've made one of these sort of quote unquote budget buys personally for my gallery and for this tournament, which we'll get into. But yeah, it's kind of like you said, Manu Sanchez, right? Is that the card that you said you picked up?
Yeah, so Manu Sanchez for me, I think is a mad bargain, because so the 2 left backs for Spain are Manu Sanchez and Miguel Gutierrez. Both of them are quality players. Miguel Gutierrez is on loan from Real Madrid and Manu Sanchez is on loan from Atleti, so that's kind of funny. But Manu Sanchez has been playing 2 seasons in a row for Osasuna, getting to cup finals, almost qualified for Europe this time. So, I don't see there being any shakes about him playing 85% of the matches or something. And again, he's on loan from Atleti, very highly rated. Will probably go back to Osasuna and play Conference League next season, but might do something better. And again, at his limited price, I think if you wanted a defender, he's really good bang for buck. I've got a midfielder that's just in the row down there, Anti Palaversa. So I've got him in my team, and he's a CFG guy. And the Croatia midfield looks tidy, but a lot of them are like 18 and stuff. A lot of them are quite young.
Yeah.
So he's a bit of I didn't even expect him to be in the squad, Harry. He's not been playing for ages, but he's really good. He's a set-piece guy as well, and he's in the squad. So I think he plays. I think out the group stage games, he must play twice, if not once. He's mad cheap unlimited as well at the moment, and he is a set-piece guy, So if he is going to start, I don't think it's a long stretch to think he's in to do a job for the team. Play centre mid, attacking mid, control the tempo, and blah, 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 all that good football chat.
If you are going out and buying these, even the budget guys, do they have longer term utility for you? Even if it's £4 for a limited, and that might be, you can absorb that quite easily, even if they don't have a future, quote unquote, after the tournament for you. But I think that the value is in having the guys that do have that loan deal ending and going back to the parent club and potentially might start next season. I think that's where it gets exciting, buying these type of cards. Somebody I do think is going to play is Jorgen Larsson, who I've mentioned already in rating. $5 for a limited. I think he plays as well. I know his 3-day average for rares very cheap at 50 odd quid. 128 on a floor price doesn't seem like as much of a bargain, but someone like him, 23 years old, I think that's the important thing that you kind of mentioned is these sort of older boys that are coming into play and quote unquote help out their nation, basically, because Jorgen Larsson's been involved in the Norwegian first team for God knows how many years. So, it shows how serious all these nations are taking it by inviting these young, the older boys down. And I don't think they would come unless they were told they're definitely going to play, if that makes sense.
A lot of people in Norway call him like the poor man's Haaland, see for like the other young Norwegians practicing playing with a big target man in a tournament probably makes a bit of sense, I think, So
100%.
Good strategy from them. You're just about to get on to who I think is a sneaky bargain in here, just out of screen, under Tavsan, next row.
Yeah. Danilo Sikan.
So this guy, mad cheap. And I think like Ukraine, Sikan. I think this guy could be a great bang for buck as well, because Ukraine do take this stuff seriously. We've seen Mudryk and Trubin are probably going to come in, and this guy is like going to be the striker for them, doing pretty well for Shakhtar. And the kind of problem a little bit with the Shakhtar guys is like the blue X and like, will they actually leave Shakhtar? But we've seen Kovalenko leave. It feels like Trubin is going to leave. Obviously, Mudryk did leave. And, this guy, if he has a good tournament, if Ukraine did get out the group, or if he did score a couple of goals or something, maybe he has a bit of an outlook beyond that, because Shakhtar have been, as I just listed off some players, they've been pumping out some talent themselves. And, for forwards are quite hard to get cards of for this tournament if you are after a wee filler.
I mean, scrolling back up, I like this row quite a lot in terms of, potential for next season. But, Guillamon hasn't really played too much for Valencia. I think he'll be a shoe-in to play for this under-21 team, personally.
Yeah.
Wherever that is, at £42 for a rare, £3 for a limited, I think is great filler card. James Garner's an interesting one. Again, very similar price point, obviously at Everton. And then this Johan Hove, who's had some really good games for Groningen. I know they got relegated, like I said, but somebody like him, like if you have a look at some of these scores, Quinny, he scored 100, 98, 91. Yeah, he's a set-piece taker for Groningen. Obviously, they had some diabolical running in that sense, and obviously got relegated, but he was a standout in this side and scored, some really nice dark green scores on his day. So he's someone to look out for in that Norwegian side. Yeah, I kind of don't mind that. I mean, 90 quid for a rare, knowing he's been relegated, and you're gambling on him, obviously, transferring, which is, definitely a possibility. The guy that I have brought into my gallery, Quinny, is a rare Jean-Paul Van Heck for Brighton.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I paid 40 odd quid for one earlier. I think the floor's 52 quid. He was selling for 36 yesterday when the news broke. So I paid just over what the sort of average is. For him, I've got his Brighton card. I can kind of show everyone, I guess, on here. But yeah, here he is. 16 of 100. So no sort of jersey mint situations. But yeah, a card that, at the price that I'm getting him at, I can afford to, have, absorb him into my gallery in that sense, and kind of gamble on whatever happens next season. If Colwill comes into Brighton on a permanent, which might happen if Chelsea are willing to sell, which I don't know if they will be, but if they are, then he obviously comes down in that pecking order even more so, and there might be another loan move. There could be a permanent move from Brighton for him, so that's potential utility. This Tavsan's a very decent player that's played for NEC this season, and he, to be fair, when I've looked at the Netherlands under-21 sides that have previously played over the last couple of months, he's been a starter. So he didn't play the last game against Czech Republic. I'm pretty sure he played this. So he scored. He had an 8.4 SOFA score rating against Yeah, he scored against Norway. 3 key passes, 1 big chance created, 7 out of 9 ground duels won, and he played on the right wing according to this, with Somerville on the other side. So, just players like that, you've kind of just got to keep an eye on, because this is where the value's at for me, is trying to look at these players that are a little bit cheaper with utility, but also that extended maybe next season situations to kind of look upon. Max Aarons, £6 for a limited. Angel Gomez, £6 for a limited. 60 quid for a rare. These are the sort of cards that I look at and I'm like, you can kind of absorb them a lot easier than you are buying a Kvaratskhelia or whoever. Do you get what I'm saying? Not everyone can go out and buy a Kvaratskhelia, obviously. So,
no.
Obviously, that's an important thing. Miranda, how do you rate his chances of starting for Spain?
Yeah, 50. A lot of the defence. Miranda could play. He's had a really good season.
Yeah.
Some of the defence is in question a little bit. I think he probably goes. Guillamon Pacheco for the most part in centre back, and then Arnau Martinez and Manu Sanchez. But Miranda's had such a good year, and like you say, Guillamon, maybe he plays Guillamon defensive mid, and Miranda starts.
This Martin Lubicic, I've actually won his card before. I think he'd be playing for Croatia, I believe. He's a sneaky one to keep an eye out for. Well, this Mandela Keita has had a breakthrough season for Antwerp, midfielder for Belgium. Another guy, though, that plays for Antwerp, who has been around quite a while, I guess, in the Sorare sphere, is Jurgen Elkenkamp, who on his day can score exceptionally well. And he's like one of those under 21 Dutch players that like just always plays for them. Do you know what I'm saying? Like Guri has for France under 21s. He's kind of their sort of like not main. Yeah, you could argue probably mainish player. I know Gravenberch is coming in. There's a lot more quality that's dropped down from the first team, so that is something to be wary of. But 60 quid for an Elkenkamp, who I think will have a good season next year at Antwerp, is kind of somebody that I'd have on my radar personally and have had on my radar, because I am actually looking for a midfielder. That's the only position I don't have right now. I have a goalkeeper in Verbruggen, which we'll get into. Obviously, I bought that Van Heck. I have forwards for days, but I don't have a midfielder. So that's somebody that's definitely on my list for sure. Pedro Neto for £10. Do we think he has sort of a revival?
I think a lot of people ran to him. When this announcement came out, because his numbers at under 21 level are very good. So he could have a big tournament.
Like he's as old as it gets in terms of, he's a 2000 born. So they're kind of the older players at this tournament. Alongside your Gibbs Whites, I think's interesting value. Luca Netz is a really interesting one. He's obviously a bit younger, but touted incredibly high at Gladbach, sort of like a left wing back. Has taken set pieces. Obviously Ben Sabini has left Gladbach for Dortmund, so there could be a breakout season for him next year. Keep an eye on that. Somebody that's been exceptional at under 21 level as well to add is Henrique Araujo for Portugal. I was an owner of his rare card at one point. Moved to Watford, didn't really cut it, from Benfica's sort of second team effectively. But yeah, somebody that scores goals for fun at under 21 level. So, him and Neto could be frightening up front for Portugal.
He was the forward I wanted to go and buy. I think he's a great shout for Golden Boot as well.
Yeah,
but
he's like an
it was a rare
9, isn't he? Like he just scores goals for fun. Doesn't do anything else on a football field other than score goals. That's just kind of his game, which is great for Golden Boot potential.
It's hard to get a Golden Boot contender forward card. It's kind of my point, my problem. I think Rocco Simic we've mentioned. I think if depending on who starts for Croatia, I think Croatia could have a Golden Boot player in them. But I think Guiri's a standout along with Henrique Araujo.
Someone I think is really sneaky is Fabio Vieira in terms of a card to then go and buy on Sorare. I mean, I know, it's an interesting situation at Arsenal. If they do bring in like your Declan Rices and Caicedo and stuff, he falls. I know he's not that type of player, but he's still a midfielder. He's an 8. He falls so much further down the pecking order. Is he sort of in the running to get a loan deal from Arsenal next season and go back maybe to Portugal and smash for a season? And because he's the type of player who he is the most like 100 capable midfield on Sorare there kind of is in the under 23 region, but he just didn't play enough to really warrant that elite level elite level price, I guess. But he is somebody I think just like he's just raring to go in that sense in terms of SO5 capabilities, because he ticks all the boxes in terms of how attacking midfielders make points and earn points on Sorare, and I think I can't see how he isn't like a main player in this Portugal side personally. So there's definitely value there. This Delinga, have you seen him play for Toulouse? He's in the Dutch squad. He scored. He scored a lot of goals this year for for Toulouse. Obviously, we've got Ravella there, who looks pretty cheap, to be fair. But again, we don't know what's going to go on next season. Bellis's price has obviously dropped considerably because, one, they've been promoted, and two, he was out injured for a while. Emile Smith-Rowe now in this England squad, which is crazy to think. Again, another Arsenal player that might fall down the pecking order and potentially move next season. Cole Palmer, we obviously have Man City cards now. Jordan Bayer's in there. Raskin, Balikwisha's, and I think that's an interesting one. Balikwisha, obviously, sort of a main player at Antwerp. The worry is if he moves, but like £12 for a limited, obviously playing for that Belgium team. I don't mind the look of that, to be honest. There's some good players around, Quinny, isn't there? There's some good sort of fringy first team players that are dropping down that are at interesting price points.
If Xerxes starts, he's maybe a golden boot contender.
Yeah,
but
agreed.
It's if he starts, because he's a bit of a problem child, isn't he? And there's not exactly the short up front either.
100%. Another sort of Dutch player that I've obviously mentioned myself is Mynans. I really like the look of him, Quinny. 15 quid for a limited. I think he's a really good option for next season personally, and obviously this tournament. Adley's in there. Obviously Manu Kone. Stipe Buick hasn't really cut it really at LAFC so far, but came in for a big fee. There's Paulo Bernardo's in the Portuguese squad. He could be an interesting one. He went on loan to Pacos de Ferreira. He scored a few decent Sorare scores last year, but didn't. Yeah, I mean, he played 87% of the last 15, to be fair, but I don't think he initially started the campaign. Harvey Elliott, Kalulu, Kenneth Taylor's an interesting one. I think he could take.
What does Destiny Udogie go for?
153 quid as a rare, £19 for a limited. I think, isn't he going to Tottenham next season? Is that kind of the...
Yeah, but he's going to be a fullback for Ange, and Ange is quite good for fullbacks.
Yeah, fair enough.
And Italy don't exactly concede lots of goals generally anyway, so...
No,
and he is good. Like, he's really good. Like, a lot of people were fighting for him,
Yeah, 100%. Zeno Dabas, another one that a lot of teams have been fighting for after his sort of breakout year at Anderlecht. I think he's exceptional personally. And he said that he wanted to go and he was one of those ones that, like, even though he was involved in the World Cup squad for Belgium's first team, he literally apparently came out and said, no, I want to go down and, like, can we go win this as a Belgium under 21 side? So, obviously every football player has a different attitude and stuff. I sort of gravitate towards that type of attitude. I kind of like how he's going about his business, but another one that could potentially move, and I'm not saying he dies, but he's not going to be scoring as well as he probably did at Anderlecht, but who knows? Who knows with that one? A couple of Portuguese goalies. This is Samuel Soares, who's a Benfica reserve keeper.
I think he makes it. I think he plays number one from what I've looked at. He seems to play more often than the other guy, Baye, who plays Boavista or something.
Okay.
So I think he's worth the punt. If you have him, play him in a team. Or if you were looking for a DNP keeper anyway, maybe he's worth the flip of the coin,
100%. 100%. I am a Vitinha owner now, Quinny. Not by choice, by reward, but he might potentially get a nod for Portugal. We've said they have crazy forward options. Fabio Silva, another one yet to come into the reckoning. So there's so many options. It's just hard to cover all bases, isn't it? That's kind of the issue if you're gambling on who's going to be the Portuguese forward or winger / whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
I think we'll see them up because their group's lethal, mate. Portugal's group. Portugal need to play every. I think that these guys. I think he'll play every game, just whether he starts or not.
Your boy Levi Colwill touted to maybe potentially move this window. I know you recently won him. What a time to win a Levi Colwill card, Quinny. Jesus.
I don't know, mate. I think he'll have a great tournament as well. I hope it's Colwill and THB. So if I do need to watch England, at least I'll be moderately entertained by the centre-back pairing, But yeah, high prospect. I think, by all accounts, I think he's going to stay at Chelsea. I think Chelsea are like, not Brighton, you can pay us like 80 million for a change, rather than, rather than you taking us for mugs all the time, So I think there's a wee bit of giving them a taste of their own medicine going on here.
Oscar Gluck, could we see him break out for Israel, potentially?
I think with the momentum Israel have got, all the players that will show up there will definitely be up for pushing on, and Gluck is like their wonder kid, their kind of banner man, their talisman.
Yeah.
So I can see him doing well in the groups, but with Germany also been in that group, it's not much beyond that. But the hope is with a guy like that, Salzburg next year, like he has a wee wonder kid. He gets a good tournament, gets a couple of goals, gets a wee spring in his step. He's been bedded in Austria now for about 6-7 months, and then next season it's Gluck time,
I think, you're going to mention it, but you've mentioned it to me privately as well. But this, Pandor for £362 for a rare, £36 for a limited, who has eligibility next season. Like, I wouldn't put money on him playing as the number one for this tournament, but I think for next season, I think that seems like I personally like that price.
I think the number one for Croatia is probably, well, I would like it to be Pandur, right? Because I think he's had, out of the three goalkeepers there, probably the best season. But Katarski plays for Powell, which are actually a pretty good team in Greece, you know. Now, when I say a better season, like, Pandur's stats are through the roof, so I don't really care what he's done in Greece but I think I think the pricing on him is just there's a lot of uncertainty in his future. He's had some rubbish transfer links, and you know there's every danger he sits on a bench and stuff like that, of course, you know. But great season at Fortuna, great stats, and if he plays for Croatia, wouldn't surprise me.
To your boy Gabby Vega potentially moving to the Premier League.
Well, I think with that line there, we've probably got a wee bit of... So I've been trying to think about Golden Boot winners, Harry, but between Lavia, Vega, some of the other guys we've mentioned, who do you think's the contender for, like, player of the tournament on paper?
Yeah, player of the tournament, Jesus. I mean, unfortunately, it's probably going to have to come from a player that, like, does score goals and get assists, right? I think that's something that, unfortunately, that's kind of the world we live in. Somebody like a Lavia probably doesn't get high enough up the field, realistically, in this Belgium side to have that impact as a player in terms of just watch, like, as an eye test. I think, yeah, someone like Lavia could end up being, or should be, the player of the tournament in that sense. Yeah. But, like, you know, just these are just names I'm just being able to see on the screen right now. But, like, a Gabby Vega for me is kind of more in the running to be like a player of the tournament, just because of his potential output as far as goals and assists, as well as how he plays as an overall sort of player, and the impact he can have on a football game. So yeah, I mean, Gabby Vega comes to mind quite quickly. I mean, Cherky's obviously going to have to be in there as well in that sort of realm. Someone like a Kenny Taylor, yeah. if the Dutch have a good tournament, Big Kenny could have something to say about that. Kakare potentially. I don't know. They're kind of the names that are flying off the top of my head. What about yourself?
I think, I'm obviously biased towards any of the Spanish boys because I've got a few of them. I think Lavia, a midfielder that runs the show for a team could easily win it in a tournament like this, you know, because that is like the kids and stuff. Jacob Ramsey has got a good shot if he plays. Like, I think he's really good. Morgan Gibbs-White's got a shot if he plays. I think he's, you know, if the team goes far, obviously. But yeah, no, I think the big shout for it probably is Cherky's got a great chance of being it as well, because the guy will need to create goals and stuff like that as well. But Cherky has that kind of stardust. He's got that expectation, and like if he gets a couple of goals, he gets a good couple of appearances in early, then there'll be a lot of momentum behind him. And Cherky has you know, in terms of like the fans, because you know these things are all baited by the fans. You know, if we all go mad for the centre back, he'll probably get player of the tournament. You know, and I'm not saying us Sorare people. I mean, just football community. If everyone goes mad for somebody, like, wow, this guy ran the show today or the team couldn't have won without him consistently enough. Those guys are the ones that will get it. And I think at youth level, defenders and mids can get it, I think, but they'll need to be exceptional. But Cherky is exceptional, and I think he's probably the one standout player across all those squads that we maybe have a wee bit more faith in, that, he really does have magic in his boots, and let's just get him on the pitch. So, Cherky's probably my shout.
Quinny, I want to know who, well, I kind of do know already, but I guess the people at home might want to know who you're cheering for in terms of, you know, the team that you're going to be setting out. I will go on your Twitter, so quick little plug to your Twitter, because you did give us a little breakdown of who you are backing. So I've got on your screen right now, on our screen, your potential 5. Is this kind of what you're settling in with in terms of this under 21 tournament?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, like MLS will be running through this group stage, so I'll have Magno as our forward option as long as he doesn't get injured or something in the meantime. I know he's not been doing that well anyway. Yeah. Camelo, I don't really expect to start every game, but I think he'll play every game. So like he's a bit of a punt at the best of times. And behind Manu Sanchez, I've got some alternatives and Colwell and MLS guys. But really, it's the super rares. If I get a sense that those guys are playing every game, then I will play pro under 23 and properly go at it, because I think that it's a thin field, you know. If you can get some power players in to the rare, to any of these divisions without the big European teams everywhere, the under 23s is just there for the taking. So I fancy Spain to go far. I'm hoping by getting the Manu Sanchez and the Sergio Camelo, I'm kind of also covering myself that they do a special weekly tournament or a monthly leaderboard. I don't think they'll do a monthly leaderboard. I don't think the tournament's long enough, but they maybe do something like that. I just want to make sure, I can definitely engage. And goalkeepers and super rares for any Division 3 are the most expensive pieces. And I had them in the gallery by luck anyway, by fortune, so like filling out wasn't really going to be much of a task. But I'm not overly like, I want Spain to go far, I want Spain to win it. But my main strategy for it is just try and max out those under 23 wins while I've got maybe some more. The goalkeeper might not even play. Trubin should be in Tani. I've got running around in Japan anyway, doing something, maybe playing football. Who knows? So like it's maybe another question mark if I headache with a goalkeeper. So I'm very excited, but I'm not like getting my hopes up. If that makes any sense to people, I'm really looking forward to it. I hope I win. I hope I do well, but I'm not buying Camelo and thinking, that's me secured first place now. Get up you,
100%. I think that is an important thing to mention. Is there is other leagues happening, there is other games and competitions, ongoing. So you don't have to pigeonhole yourself into just thinking that you need to buy these under 21 championship players, because ultimately we don't know if there's a special weekly coming out or not. If there's not, then there's definitely no need of really buying a whole sort of contingency of these Euro under 21 players. If you've got a couple already, bringing 1 or 2 in isn't going to be a bad idea. But, don't go buying a goalkeeper just for the sake of the under 21 tournament when you could go out and buy a goalkeeper playing in X, Y, and Z league, MLS, K League, or J League. Do you get what I'm saying? With more utility. Yep. So I think that's something to kind of mention. Like I said, I can't fully make a team right now because I'm sort of midfielderless on the under 21 European Championship level. I have midfielders playing elsewhere at the same time, which is fine. So that means I don't necessarily have to go out and buy one. But yeah, Turkey, I've got the Van Hecken, Verbruggen sort of Dutch stack at the back. And then I do have a Super Ayobe Vitesse that I could utilize. I do have a Vitinha Rare that I could utilize. But like I said, midfielders is kind of where I'm sort of low on. Yeah,
rare middleweight from a quality D4 lineup there.
Yeah, I mean, I have a Santiago Rodriguez Super that could come in for New York. So I'm not, it could be a good team. It could be fun.
That could be good, yeah.
Yeah, it could be decent. But yeah, that's kind of the sort of spine of it. And I'm obviously really excited to see where that takes us. But I think, Quinny, that could be the end of our video. I mean, I think we've sort of covered everything possible that anyone could really want to know about this Euro Under 21 scouting, which is great.
We have.
I think we have, which is good. It doesn't mean we have
We're ready for it, Harry. We're locked and loaded. We're ready. The Golden Boot and the best player of the team. So who's going to win it? Harry, who do you think's going to win it? I think Spain. Who do you think?
I'm going to go England. I shouldn't be as a Welshman, but I'm going to say England.
Yeah, I was going to say Harry.
Yeah, I know. Sorry to any fellow Welshman watching, or Welshwoman. But yeah, it's hard to look past England for me. I can't lie. I've tickled Quinny there.
Definitely don't want to offend any of those Welsh birds that are watching the channel.
Mate, I can't afford to.
Love it.
I think Quinny mentioned before we recorded that he might be doing a lot of streaming, in terms of the games happening whilst the tournament's on his channel. So, look out for that. I'll be popping in where I can. But yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me, Quinny. And you guys at home, hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, leave a like. If you haven't yet subscribed to Quinny, please do so. And even myself, if you haven't done so yet, that would be very much appreciated. But it's been a pleasure, Quinny. Thank you for watching. And yeah, that'll be the end of the video.